Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about respect. Once it's broken, it takes a lot more than apologies to rebuild. Right now, we're seeing something truly eye-opening. Turkey, a nation known for its rich culture and historical pride, is reaching out, almost begging, for Indian tourists, Indian investments, Indian goodwill. Why? Because they're facing the economic consequences of something people often overlook: the power of your choices. The strength of silent resistance, the voice that speaks even when you say nothing at all. Respect is one of the most foundational elements of any relationship, whether it's between two people or two nations. Without it, trust collapses, connection dies, and cooperation becomes impossible. When Turkey allowed or enabled narratives that directly insulted or undermined India, it wasn't just political posturing. It was a loud, clear message of disrespect. And here's the truth: in today's world, people don't forget, nations don't forget. Respect isn't optional anymore. It's not just a matter of tradition or diplomacy, it's a requirement if you want to be a part of global progress. India is not just a country, it is a force, a rising superpower with a deeply rooted culture, economic strength, and a global voice that's growing louder every single day. When someone disrespects India, they're not just offending a government, they're offending over 1 billion people who take pride in their heritage, values, and voice. Turkey might not have realized it at the time, but actions like supporting anti-India propaganda or aligning with hostile narratives carry weight. The world has changed, people are more aware, nations are more alert. And the global citizen now watches every move on social media, remembers it, and reacts, sometimes quietly, but always powerfully. Respect means acknowledging another country's sovereignty, its culture, its truth, and its people. It means standing with fairness and honesty, even when the international stage gets messy. If you choose to side with those who openly disrespect India, then you're making a clear decision, and decisions have consequences. Turkey's diplomatic choices and the rhetoric used by its leadership at certain points created ripples that turned into waves of backlash, and rightly so. Because when you undermine someone's dignity, you don't get to pretend like nothing happened. What we're witnessing now, as Turkey reaches out to Indians with open arms, is not just tourism promotion, it's a recovery attempt. It's a nation realizing that words carry consequences and that losing respect leads to economic pain. Because when Indian tourists stop visiting, when Indian investors pull back, when the emotional connection is gone, what's left? A gap that money alone cannot fill. That's the cost of disrespect. It doesn't just hurt relationships, it hits economies. And it hits hard. People think of respect as soft, as emotional, but it's not. It's powerful, it's economic, it's social, it's diplomatic. When India steps back in silence, the silence becomes deafening. Turkey now sees it. That's why the sudden change in tone. That's why the attempts to restore goodwill. But respect can't be bought. It must be earned, and once broken, the process to rebuild it is long, uncertain, and often unsuccessful. This moment is a wake-up call, not just for Turkey, but for any nation that thinks it can insult and still enjoy Indian support. Those days are over. Today, India stands tall, and Indians walk away from disrespect with dignity. Not hate, not rage, but clarity. And that's more powerful than anything else. Sometimes the loudest message is the one never spoken. When India chose not to respond with outrage, threats, or noise, it made a much bigger statement through silence. This wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Instead of falling into the trap of dramatic reactions, the Indian people and leadership understood the power of silent protest. They knew that actions, especially economic ones, speak louder than words. So they simply stopped supporting, they stopped traveling, they stopped spending, and they did it without a hashtag war, without burning flags, without creating chaos. They let the impact speak for itself. This kind of silence is strategic. It doesn't rely on headlines or emotional outbursts. It relies on awareness. It's the strength of a people who understand the value of their choices. When Turkish politics took a turn that disrespected India, When statements were made that aligned with anti-India sentiment, the response wasn't to shout back. The response was to quietly shift attention elsewhere. Indian tourists, known for their high spending and global travel presence, began choosing other destinations. Indian consumers became more selective, and Indian voices, although calm, were unified in one message: we see you, and we don't support this. This kind of silent protest is far more powerful than it appears. It doesn't just hurt egos, it hits where it matters most, the economy. Turkey's tourism sector is a major source of income, and Indian tourists contribute significantly to that. When those numbers dropped, when bookings slowed, and when interest declined, the silence started to echo. It wasn't just a drop in revenue, it was a sign that India will not reward disrespect, a sign that the Indian public is informed, aware, and capable of making a statement without making a scene. It also speaks volumes about the maturity of the Indian mindset today. This isn't about temporary outrage or social media storms. It's about long-term awareness. It's about understanding that your money, your attention, and your time are powerful tools. Every time you choose not to support a country that disrespects you, you're casting a vote. A vote for values, a vote for dignity, a vote for self-respect. And when millions of Indians make that choice together, even without coordination, the message is impossible to ignore. This protest isn't about hate. It's not about revenge. It's about standards. It's about saying, we expect better, we deserve better. And until that better is offered, until real change is seen, India will continue to walk its path quietly, with dignity. It's the kind of strength that cannot be manipulated. You can't argue with it. You can't dismiss it, because it's not coming from a place of weakness or fear. It's coming from a deep sense of national pride and discipline. And that is exactly why Turkey is now trying to repair the relationship. They've felt the absence. They've realized that Indian silence is not indifference. It's intentional, it's focused, it's strategic. And it's working. In a world where noise dominates, India's silent protest has become a powerful lesson. Sometimes, not reacting is the strongest reaction of all. It puts the responsibility on the other side to reflect, to realize, and to change. And in the case of Turkey, that reflection has already begun. But regaining the trust and goodwill of 1 billion strong, silently unified voices, that will take time, and that silence will remain until true respect is earned. Every time you make a purchase, book a flight, or plan a vacation, you're making a choice that carries power. Economic activism isn't just about boycotts or protests. It's about understanding that your money is a message. When Indians stopped choosing Turkey as a travel destination, it wasn't just a shift in tourism, it was a shift in power. That quiet decision to look elsewhere was not coordinated by politicians or activists. It came from ordinary people who were simply aware. Aware of what Turkey had said, aware of how India had been treated, and aware of the value they bring to the global economy. You see, Indian tourists are among the most influential in the world. They travel in huge numbers, they spend generously, and they impact the local economies of the countries they visit. When they stop showing up, countries feel it. Hotels stay empty, local businesses struggle. Airlines lose traffic, and the message begins to hit, not just on social media, but on spreadsheets and balance sheets. This is the essence of economic activism, using the power of your wallet to shape the kind of world you want to see. This isn't about cancel culture or hatred, it's about alignment, it's about values. When you support a country or a company, you're not just enjoying their products or services, you're endorsing what they stand for. And when Turkey aligned itself with anti-India rhetoric or made diplomatic moves that clearly disrespected India's integrity, the people of India responded, not with rage, but with quiet refusal. They chose not to invest their time, energy, or money into a place that had shown them disrespect. And make no mistake, these decisions matter. They send ripples through economies. One canceled trip might seem small, But multiply that by hundreds of thousands, and the loss is staggering. Turkey realized this too late. They realized that when a country as powerful and populous as India chooses to withhold support, the effects are not symbolic, they're measurable. This is why economic activism is such a powerful tool in today's world. It doesn't rely on speeches or governments. It relies on the people. It empowers individuals to say, I may not be in politics, but I still have power. And when millions of people act from that mindset, real change begins to happen. The global economy is built on consumer behavior. And when the consumers get smart, when they become aware of how their money influences the world, they become unstoppable. What happened with Turkey is a perfect example of that power. The Indian public didn't wait for permission. They didn't organize mass protests. They simply chose differently. They supported countries that respected India. They directed their attention and resources toward places that valued mutual respect and friendship. And they did it not to hurt anyone, but to protect their dignity. That's what makes this kind of activism so impactful. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's deliberate, and it works because it forces those in power to pay attention, not because of protests, but because of profits. When businesses suffer, when tourism crashes, when investments decline, questions get asked, and the answer often leads back to one clear truth: disrespect has a price. So, if you ever feel powerless watching international events unfold, remember this: your economic decisions are your voice. You don't need to be on the news to make an impact. You don't need a platform to shift the balance. You just need awareness and the courage to act on it. That's how economic activism works. That's how you create change. One choice at a time. You can't have it both ways. That's a truth many people and even entire nations often forget, until the consequences catch up with them. Turkey, for a period of time, attempted to maintain economic and cultural ties with India while simultaneously making diplomatic moves that clearly showed disrespect. It's a contradiction that doesn't go unnoticed anymore. In today's interconnected world, you cannot insult a nation and still expect its support. You cannot speak against a people and still hope they'll visit your cities, invest in your economy, or treat your country as a partner. That era is over. India, once seen as a quiet player in global politics, is now stepping into its strength. It's not loud, it's not reckless, but it is firm. The Indian people are awake, they're informed. And they're watching every word, every action, every signal. When Turkey chose to support narratives that were hostile to India's interests, whether through speeches, international forums, or alliances, it made a statement. That statement didn't sit well with Indians, and while Turkey may have believed they could still benefit economically from India despite these actions, the Indian response made one thing clear: respect is a two-way street. You can't shake one hand while slapping with the other. For too long, countries have tried to do exactly that: gain from India's economic strength while undermining its image, its sovereignty, or its political stance. But the tide has turned. The Indian public is not passive anymore. They understand their power. They know that their support, whether as tourists, investors, or consumers, is a privilege, not a guarantee. And once it's withdrawn, it's not easily won back. Turkey's economic relationship with India was never just about transactions. It was about trust. When you invite someone into your country, into your markets, into your economy, you are building a bridge of cooperation. But that bridge must stand on the pillars of mutual respect. When Turkey allowed itself to be seen aligning with India's adversaries or made statements that criticized Indian policies in international forums, it weakened those pillars. And now that bridge is shaking. What makes this situation more significant is that Turkey underestimated the memory of the Indian people. They may have believed the news cycle would move on, that people would forget. But Indians didn't forget. They remembered, and more importantly, they responded, not with chaos but with clarity. They stopped traveling there. They stopped promoting it. And in doing so, they showed that emotional intelligence and national pride can work hand in hand. This is the lesson every country must learn. You can't disrespect a rising power and expect business as usual. You can't attack its dignity and then ask for its money. You can't speak against its interests and then ask for support. If you want the benefits of a relationship, you must honor the responsibilities that come with it. That includes speaking with integrity, acting with fairness, and treating your partners with the respect they deserve. India is not closing doors, it is simply setting boundaries, and that's healthy, that's powerful, because boundaries protect dignity, they prevent exploitation, they preserve balance in relationships. Turkey is now realizing what happens when you try to bypass those boundaries. The invitation is no longer open, the welcome mat has been pulled back, and the silence from India isn't empty, it's intentional. So to any country thinking it can play both sides, think again. The Indian people are watching, and their standards have risen. You either respect India fully, or you feel the absence of its support. There is no middle ground anymore. India is a country of deep diversity, ancient traditions, and modern ambition. But what truly sets it apart is the unshakable unity of its people when it comes to national pride. In moments of global disrespect or diplomatic betrayal, India doesn't need to be told how to respond. Its people instinctively come together, not with anger, not with chaos, but with a firm and unspoken bond of patriotism. That's exactly what happened in response to Turkey's actions. Without government orders, without massive campaigns, the people simply knew what to do. And they did it together, silently and powerfully. This is what many outside of India fail to understand. Indian patriotism is not always loud or dramatic. It is quiet, rooted, and powerful. It doesn't need external validation because it comes from within. Indians feel a deep connection to their identity, their culture, and their nation. And when that identity is attacked or disrespected, the reaction is unified, even across languages, states, and regions. That unity is India's real strength. It's not just about waving flags or chanting slogans. It's about shared values, shared memory, and shared dignity. When Turkey made the mistake of disrespecting India through its diplomatic postures or public statements, it triggered this deep collective pride. Indians didn't need to call each other to plan a reaction. They simply reacted in sync. People stopped traveling to Turkey. Content creators stopped promoting it. Travel companies saw a drop in demand. Social media filled with calm but clear messages. We will not support a nation that disrespects us. That is not hatred. That is dignity in action. This type of unity sends a stronger message than any official condemnation. It shows the world that Indian citizens are not passive observers. They are active participants in defending their country's honor. When millions of people make the same decision without being told, it becomes impossible to ignore. That's what Turkey faced. The loss of support wasn't just political. It was deeply personal. It was a sign that India's pride cannot be bought, and that disrespect has consequences beyond what anyone expected. This silent show of strength is a model for the world. It proves that national pride doesn't need to be violent or hostile to be effective. True patriotism is knowing when to walk away, when to withhold, when to protect your values without ever having to raise your voice. India did exactly that, and the results were felt deeply in Turkey's tourism and diplomatic circles. That's the power of unified, quiet patriotism. In many ways, this situation is a reflection of a larger global shift. Countries like India are no longer willing to accept disrespect under the disguise of diplomacy. They are no longer satisfied with being seen as mere markets or supporters. They want to be treated as equals. And when that equality is denied, the people of India rise, not with riots, but with reason, not with hate, but with principle. So when the world sees Indians acting together in silent protest, they're witnessing something more than economic impact. They're seeing the soul of a nation come alive, a nation that remembers, a nation that stands tall, a nation that doesn't forget who it is and what it stands for. And no matter how many divisions exist within, nothing unites Indians faster than the defense of their country's name and pride. That is what Turkey encountered. Not outrage, but unwavering unity. Not rebellion, but resolve. And it is that Indian spirit, strong and silent, that makes all the difference. Trust is a fragile thing. Once it's broken, rebuilding it is never simple. It takes more than apologies or gestures. It takes time, consistency, and a genuine change in behavior. When Turkey crossed the line by supporting narratives or alliances that undermined India's dignity and sovereignty, it damaged a relationship that had the potential to be mutually beneficial. And now, with Turkey reaching out, trying to regain favor, the challenge isn't whether India will forgive, it's whether trust can be rebuilt at all. Indians don't easily forget disrespect. It isn't just about politics or diplomacy. It's about pride, identity, and national integrity. When someone violates that, it creates a deep sense of disappointment. For a while, Turkey may have believed that its actions wouldn't have long-term consequences, that eventually things would go back to normal. But what they didn't realize is that the Indian people were watching, listening, and silently making up their minds. And now, that silence has become a statement. The drop in tourism, the reduction in engagement, and the emotional distance are all signs that something has shifted, and not in Turkey's favor. Once trust is lost, every word and action is viewed with suspicion. Even if Turkey extends a hand in friendship, Indians are now asking the deeper question, is this genuine, or is this just about economic loss? And that's a hard perception to change. Because when your renewed interest in a relationship seems to come only after financial damage, it feels transactional, not respectful. India doesn't want apologies just to fix tourism numbers. It wants sincerity. It wants honesty. It wants to be treated as an equal, not just as a source of revenue. This is the cost of broken trust. The emotional connection is gone, and it takes far more than clever marketing or political visits to rebuild it. Turkey must now prove, over time, that it respects India, not just in words, but in decisions, alliances, and actions on the global stage. That's the only way to slowly restore faith. And even then, the people of India may still be cautious. Because they've seen what happens when a friend turns into a critic. They've seen how quickly support can turn into betrayal. And now, they've learned to protect their pride before offering trust again. The world is watching this unfold, and it's a lesson for every nation. Never take relationships for granted. Never assume that support is automatic. Trust must be earned and protected with consistency. India's silence should not be misunderstood as weakness. It is a firm boundary. It is the space created to evaluate whether someone is worthy of a second chance. And here's the truth. Even if Turkey makes every possible effort to rebuild this bridge, there's no guarantee it will succeed. Because the loss of trust doesn't just affect politics or tourism. It touches the heart of the people, and that's the hardest place to reach once hurt has been caused. Indians are known for their hospitality, for their openness, for their warmth. But they are also known for their memory. They remember who stood by them, and who did not. So now, Turkey must walk a long road, not to convince India with words, but to earn its respect through action. Every future step will be watched. Every statement will be measured, and every move will be weighed against the past, because trust, once broken, changes everything. It changes the tone of the relationship. It changes the willingness to cooperate. It changes the level of openness. This is not about punishment. It's about self-respect. India isn't shutting the door, it's holding it firmly, waiting to see if the other side understands what it means to truly respect a nation and its people. Until then, the silence remains, not as a void, but as a reminder. Trust is earned, not assumed, and once lost, it may never return the same way again. In conclusion, this moment between India and Turkey is far more than a diplomatic disagreement or a travel trend. It's a powerful demonstration of national pride, silent unity, and the strength of informed citizens. India didn't respond with chaos, it responded with clarity. The people made conscious choices, backed by principle, not emotion, and in doing so, they sent a clear, undeniable message to the world. You cannot disrespect a rising nation and expect its support in return. This is not about hate, it's about holding others accountable. It's about boundaries. It's about showing the world that economic relationships must be built on mutual respect, not convenience. Turkey's realization came too late, and now the road to rebuilding trust is long and uncertain. Let this be a reminder for every nation. In the age of awareness, every action is seen, every word is remembered, and every decision counts. The Indian voice, even when silent, is powerful. And when that voice speaks through unity, through dignity, through unwavering self-respect, it reshapes the world.